After a few drinks, our neighbor Lionel leaned in and, with a smirk, said, "Man, your wife is so hot. You're a lucky guy." He probably thought he was giving me a compliment, but the way it came out had a completely different weight. Before I could even react, my wife, Sarah, who was standing right there, laughed and shot back. "Well, Lionel's my type." She said it playfully, but it hit me like a punch to the gut. If only I had known then that this was just the beginning, that it would all end with them sleeping together right in front of me. Let me start by saying that I always trusted Sarah. We'd been married for 5 years, and while she had a stubborn streak and liked to flirt now and then, I never thought she'd actually cross the line. At least, that's what I believed, until that night at Lionel's party. It was a Saturday evening, and the whole neighborhood was buzzing with energy. Lionel had invited us over, and he was the kind of guy everyone liked, charming, confident, a little too smooth for my taste. I noticed the way his eyes lingered on Sarah throughout the night, but I brushed it off. Then came his comment about her being hot. And her response. I forced out a chuckle, trying to play it cool, but something about the way they locked eyes made my stomach twist. I didn't want to make a scene, so I pulled Sarah aside and whispered, "What the hell was that?" She rolled her eyes like I was being ridiculous. "Relax, it was just a joke." "You're so uptight." But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more behind it. As the night went on, Sarah spent more time talking to Lionel than to me. Every time I tried to pull her back into our space, she brushed me off. When I finally told her I was ready to leave, she barely looked at me, waving me away like I was an afterthought. That's when the pieces started falling into place. Lately, she and Lionel had been getting way too close. At first, I didn't think much of his frequent invites. I figured he was just being friendly. But now, I wasn't so sure. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Sarah humming in the kitchen, flipping pancakes like nothing had happened. That was her go-to move whenever she wanted to smooth things over. I didn't bring up Lionel or what went down at the party. Not yet. Instead, I played along, cracking jokes over breakfast. She acted like everything was completely normal, which only made my suspicions grow. Sarah had a way of charming people, of making them forget what they were upset about. And I wasn't about to fall for it. Later that day, Lionel showed up. Normally, it wasn't weird for him to drop by unannounced, but this time, something felt off. He was a little too friendly, too casual when he invited us over for dinner the following weekend. "Bring a bottle of wine," he said with that same easy grin. "It's been a while since we all hung out." I hesitated. My gut was telling me to shut this down, but before I could, Sarah jumped in. "We'd love to," she said, her voice bright and eager. Then she shot me a quick look, a silent dare, challenging me to say no in front of him. As soon as Lionel left, I turned to Sarah, my patience already wearing thin. "Why are you so excited about going to Lionel's? Didn't last night feel off to you?" She smirked, casually leaning against the counter. "Off? You're imagining things. It'll be fun, don't be such a buzzkill." That smug little smile of hers only made my skin crawl, but I held back. Pushing her now wouldn't get me anywhere. Instead, I decided to use this dinner as an opportunity. If something was going on between them, I was going to find out. The week crawled by, and Sarah was in an unusually good mood. She spent more time on her phone, laughing at texts I wasn't privy to, put extra effort into her appearance, and even bought a new dress. Just because. By the time Saturday rolled around, she looked incredible, but something about her felt distant. Like she was trying too hard. We showed up at Lionel's place, wine in hand, and the moment we stepped inside, I could tell she was comfortable. Too comfortable. Lionel greeted her with a warm smile, and when she hugged him back, there was an enthusiasm that made my stomach twist. Throughout dinner, I watched the way they interacted, the stolen glances, the inside jokes that left me out. Then Lionel complimented her dress, and she absolutely lit up. "Thanks," she said, flashing that sly smile I used to love. "I wasn't sure if it was the right choice, but I think I made the right call." Lionel chuckled. "Oh, you definitely did." At that moment, I might as well have been invisible. Every exchange, every lingering look, chipped away at my patience, but I kept my cool. If I snapped now, I'd look paranoid, and Sarah would just twist it around on me. As the night stretched on, Leano cracked open another bottle of wine, and Sarah's behavior only got bolder. She laughed louder, leaned in closer to him, and at one point, playfully slapped his arm like they were sharing some private joke. I could feel my jaw clenching, my frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. When we finally got home, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "What the hell is going on with you and Lionel? You've been acting different," she scoffed, rolling her eyes like I was some kind of idiot. "Oh my God, not this again. You're so insecure, it's embarrassing." I exhaled sharply, my hands balling into fists at my sides as I fought to keep my voice steady. "I'm not insecure, Sarah. But I'm not blind either. Something's going on, and you know it." She didn't bother arguing, just spun on her heel and stormed off to the bedroom, leaving me standing there alone with my thoughts. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I made up my mind. If she wasn't going to admit it, I'd have to catch her myself. Thursday night started like any other restless evening. Sarah had gone to bed early, or at least, that's what she told me. I was still up, mindlessly scrolling through my phone in the living room, when a faint sound caught my attention. A laugh. Sarah's laugh. I frowned, setting my phone down as I strained to listen. It was quiet, but unmistakable. Following the sound, I made my way toward the balcony. Our apartment shared the space with Leonel's, separated only by a low railing. Normally, it was dead silent this late, but tonight, hushed voices carried through the open balcony door. As I moved closer, my stomach twisted. Through the curtains, I could make out their figures: Sarah, dressed in something short and tight, and Lionel, standing there shirtless, his broad shoulders catching the glow of the moonlight. They were close, way too close. Sarah was leaning slightly over the railing, her hands gripping it like she'd been caught mid-motion. Lionel was right behind her, his arm wrapped protectively around her waist, steadying her, his other hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Their bodies were pressed together in a way that made my pulse spike with anger. "What the hell is going on?" I barked, shoving the sliding door open so hard it rattled against the frame. They both jolted, turning to face me like deer caught in headlights. Sarah immediately straightened, one hand smoothing down her dress, the other gripping the railing like she needed something to hold onto. Lionel took a step back, hands raised in that universal "I'm innocent" gesture. "Relax," Sarah said quickly, her voice calm but slightly breathless. "This isn't what it looks like." I let out a sharp laugh, disbelief surging through me. "Not what it looks like? Then explain why my wife is bent over with our half-naked neighbor pressed up against her." Sarah exhaled sharply, stepping toward me with that familiar mix of irritation and confidence. "I dropped the wine opener out here earlier, and I was reaching for it. I lost my balance, and Lionel just helped steady me. That's it." Lionel chimed in, his voice awkward and defensive. "Yeah, man." She leaned over, and it looked like she might fall. I just reacted. I folded my arms, narrowing my eyes. "And what, your first instinct was to take your shirt off before playing hero?" Lionel glanced down at himself, as if just now realizing he was half-dressed. "I was at home, relaxing. Didn't think I needed a shirt to help your wife." Sarah crossed her arms now, her stance shifting from defensive to combative. "You're being ridiculous. Nothing happened. Do you really think I'd be that stupid?" My blood was boiling, but the way she said it made me hesitate. Sarah was always quick on her feet, always knew exactly how to spin a situation. "You really expect me to believe this?" I asked, my voice low and tight. She stepped in closer, resting a hand lightly on my arm, her wide eyes filled with sincerity. "I swear you're overthinking this. Don't let jealousy turn you into one of those paranoid husbands. Lionel was just helping me. That's all." Over her shoulder, I caught Lionel's gaze. He nodded quickly, his voice low and appeasing. "Seriously, man. I didn't mean to overstep." Sarah tilted her head, her expression softening just enough to disarm me. You know I'd never do anything to hurt you. Don't throw away a perfectly good marriage over a misunderstanding. I wanted to stay angry, to stand my ground, but the way she looked at me, calm, confident, unwavering, made me second-guess everything I'd just seen. Fine, I muttered, though the knot in my stomach refused to loosen. But this doesn't sit right with me, Sarah. I don't like it. A small, knowing smile flickered across her lips. You don't have to like it. You just have to trust me. And with that, she turned and walked back to the bedroom, leaving me alone with my doubts, and an awkward, lingering Leano. Sorry, man, he mumbled before retreating to his side of the balcony. I didn't answer. I just stood there, staring out into the night, wondering if I'd just been played by the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. The next morning, Sarah acted like nothing had happened. She greeted me with that same radiant smile, poured herself a cup of coffee, and hummed some tune as if last night had been just another ordinary evening. But I couldn't shake the image of her and Lionel on the balcony, the way they moved together so naturally, too comfortably. I sat at the kitchen table, watching her float around the room with effortless confidence. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't avoiding my gaze. If anything, she seemed lighter, almost smug. Finally, I broke the silence. So we're just going to pretend last night didn't happen? She paused mid-sip, arching an eyebrow. What's there to talk about? I already explained it. You're the one who made it into a thing. My jaw tightened as I fought to keep my voice even. You were in a tight dress, practically pressed up against Lionel, and he didn't even have a shirt on. That's not just nothing, Sarah. She let out an exaggerated sigh, setting her mug down with a soft thud. Do you even hear yourself? You're making it sound like some dramatic love affair when it was literally a misunderstanding. I told you, I leaned over, and he thought I was going to fall. That's it. Her dismissive tone only made my frustration spike. And you actually expect me to believe that? After everything lately? The flirting at the party, the way he looks at you, the way you look at him? Her expression darkened, a flicker of irritation crossing her face. So what, now I'm not allowed to have friends? Or is it just Lionel, because he's a man? Do you even realize how controlling you sound? This isn't about control. I snapped, my voice rising. It's about respect. It's about boundaries, Sarah. She crossed her arms, tilting her head slightly, her voice dripping with condescension. Boundaries? You think I crossed some invisible line just because I'm friendly with a neighbor? Maybe you should take a long, hard look in the mirror. You're the one with trust issues. I stared at her, stunned at how effortlessly she flipped it back on me. Sarah was always quick, always sharp with her words, but this was something else entirely. Why are you so defensive? I asked, working to keep my voice level. If there's really nothing going on, why not just admit how bad it looked? Sarah let out an exasperated sigh, shaking her head like I was a child who just didn't get it. You know what? I'm done with this. Believe whatever you want. I don't have time to defend myself every time your imagination decides to run wild. And just like that, she grabbed her coffee and walked out, leaving me sitting there alone with my thoughts. The rest of the day was thick with tension. Sarah carried on like nothing had happened, chatting on the phone, scrolling through her laptop, completely unfazed. Meanwhile, I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling in my gut. By the time evening rolled around, I needed to clear my head. I'm going out for a walk, I told her. She barely glanced up from her screen. Okay. Don't be too long. Her indifference stung, but I bit my tongue and stepped outside. The night air was crisp, but it did nothing to cool my thoughts. Was I being paranoid? Had she really convinced me that what I saw was innocent? Or was she just that good at twisting the truth? I didn't know anymore. But one thing was certain. I wasn't letting this go until I had real answers. By the time I got home, the apartment was dark. Sarah was already in bed, her steady breathing filling the silence. I slid under the covers beside her, staring up at the ceiling, wondering if the woman lying next to me was a stranger. The tension lingered the next day, but Sarah had a way of disarming me when she wanted to. That evening, after dinner, she was softer, more affectionate, like the woman I'd fallen in love with. She poured us both glasses of wine, put on our favorite playlist, and laughed like the past few days of suspicion and doubt had never happened. "I hate it when we fight," she murmured as she curled up next to me on the couch, her fingers tracing light patterns on my arm. I exhaled, feeling the weight of it all pressing down. "Yeah, things have been tense." She tilted her head, flashing me that familiar, teasing smile. "Maybe I can make it up to you." Before I could respond, she leaned in, her lips brushing against mine. And just like that, the walls started to crack. As the night blurred into the bedroom, for a moment, everything else melted away. No Lionel, no balcony, no accusations. Just us. As things heated up, Sarah closed her eyes, her breath coming faster. For a fleeting moment, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the reset we needed. That we could wipe away the doubt, the tension, everything. Then, as she reached her peak, her voice broke through the haze. "Oh yes, Lionel!" Time stopped. My body went rigid, the weight of her words slamming into me like a freight train. I pulled back instantly, my pulse roaring in my ears. Her eyes flew open, and in them, I saw it, that split-second realization. The shock. The regret. "What did you just say?" My voice was sharp, slicing through the thick silence. Sarah froze, her lips parting as if to deny it, but nothing came out. "You said Lionel?" I climbed out of bed, pacing as rage, humiliation, and betrayal coursed through me in a violent mix. "Are you kidding me? Are you actually kidding me right now?" She scrambled to sit up, pulling the sheets around her, her voice hurried and defensive. "It was nothing. It just slipped out. You're overreacting again." "Overreacting?" I spun to face her, the words nearly choking me. "You called me by another man's name, in our bed. And not just any man, Lionel. The guy you've been way too damn close to lately. How the hell am I supposed to ignore that?" She crossed her arms, lifting her chin in defiance. "It was a slip. That's all it was. You're looking for a reason to be mad at me, and you're blowing this way out of proportion." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Out of proportion? Sarah, you're acting like this is normal. Like people just accidentally moan their neighbor's name in the middle of an intimate moment." She rolled her eyes, exhaling sharply. "Oh, give it a rest. It doesn't mean anything. It's not like anything happened between us." "Then why did you say his name?" I shot back, my voice raw. "That's when it happened. That shift." The hesitation disappeared. The regret? Gone. In its place, a smirk curled at the edge of her lips, a glint in her eyes that sent a cold chill down my spine. "The only difference," she murmured, tilting her head slightly, "is that Lionel goes deeper." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. For a second, I just stood there, stunned, my mind struggling to process what she just said. Then, as if twisting the knife, she added with a wicked little grin, "Probably." A slow, burning rage built in my gut. My fist clenched at my sides, my breath came fast and uneven. "You think this is funny?" My voice shook with fury. "You think I'm just going to laugh this off?" She stepped closer, completely unfazed by the storm she just unleashed. "I think," she said, her tone eerily calm, "you're insecure. And you're desperate to pin something on me because you don't trust yourself." I couldn't even respond. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, each one fighting for dominance. Sarah, as always, had the upper hand. She leaned in, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath. "If you don't want to lose me," she whispered, "you'd better figure out how to stop being so jealous. Because I'm not going to spend my life apologizing for things I didn't do." Then, without another word, she turned and walked out, leaving me standing there, fuming, humiliated, and questioning everything. Sarah didn't come back to the bedroom that night. Instead, I heard the faint click of the guest room door closing down the hall. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind running in circles, replaying her words over and over. The only difference is that Lionel goes deeper, probably. It had to be a joke. Some cruel, twisted attempt to get under my skin. But deep down, that nagging feeling in my chest, the same one that had started at the neighbor's party, refused to let me brush it off. By the time morning rolled around, I felt like I hadn't slept at all. When I walked into the kitchen, Sarah was already there, dressed in a flowing blouse and fitted jeans, her hair and makeup flawless as ever. She looked effortlessly put together, like someone who had no regrets, no second thoughts. "Good morning," she said casually, barely glancing at me before turning back to her coffee. I grabbed a mug from the cabinet, keeping my voice neutral. "Morning." She leaned against the counter, sipping her coffee with a slow, knowing smile. "You seemed pretty upset last night. Sleep okay?" I clenched my jaw, resisting the urge to take the bait. "Not really. Hard to sleep after hearing what you said." She shrugged, setting her mug down with a soft clink. "I already told you. It didn't mean anything. But if you're going to keep obsessing over it, maybe you need to ask yourself why you're so insecure." I let out a dry, humorless laugh. There's nothing insecure about expecting my wife not to moan another man's name in the middle of an intimate moment. Sarah sighed, shaking her head like I was some exhausting burden. "You're still on this? I can't believe I'm married to someone who blows things out of proportion like this. It's pathetic." My grip tightened around the coffee mug. "Maybe I wouldn't have to if you didn't keep giving me reasons to doubt you." For the first time, her cool composure faltered. Her eyes narrowed just slightly before she masked it with that infuriating smirk. "Doubt me? You're the one creating problems where there are none. I've been nothing but honest with you, but you're so busy playing detective, you don't even see it." "Honest?" I let out a bitter chuckle. "You call this honesty? Hiding on the balcony with Lionel, moaning his name in bed, making snide little comments about him being better than me? That's what you call honesty?" She stepped closer, her voice lowering to a sharp whisper. "You want honesty? Fine. The truth is, you've been suffocating lately. Always watching, always questioning. It's exhausting." The words stung, but I refused to let her see it. "You don't get to turn this around on me, Sarah. You've been acting shady for weeks, and I'm not the only one who's noticed." Her expression flickered, just for a second, before she caught herself. Then, her lips curled into another smirk, one that sent ice through my veins. "Oh, really?" she murmured. "Who else? Lionel? You think he's on your side?" The way she said it, the confidence behind it, made my stomach drop. She was too sure. Too unfazed. And suddenly, I had the sinking feeling that whatever this was, it was bigger than I had let myself believe. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was a reality I wasn't ready to face. "I don't care what Lionel thinks," I said, my voice firm. "But I care about this marriage, and right now, it feels like I'm the only one who does." Sarah's smile faded, her expression hardening into something colder. "Maybe that's because you're the only one making it a problem. You're so busy looking for cracks that you don't even see the foundation you're breaking yourself." She grabbed her purse and keys, brushing past me toward the door. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice tight. "Out," she said flatly. "I need space to think, and you should do the same." The door clicked shut behind her, leaving me alone in the quiet kitchen, my coffee growing cold in my hands. For the first time, doubt crept in. Was I being paranoid? Was I tearing us apart with my suspicions? But then I thought about Lionel. About the way they looked at each other. About the way she had moaned his name without hesitation. No. Something wasn't right. The next day, I decided to take a different approach. Sarah wasn't going to admit anything willingly, and my suspicions weren't going to disappear on their own. If I wanted answers, I had to get creative. That evening, as we sat in awkward silence over dinner, I carefully set the trap. "Lionel hasn't been over in a while," I said casually, spearing a piece of food with my fork. "Maybe we should invite him for a drink. You know, clear the air." Sarah's fork paused midair, her gaze snapping to mine. "Clear the air?" she repeated slowly. "What's there to clear?" I shrugged, keeping my tone easy, almost amused. "Things have been weird since the balcony thing. Maybe if we all hang out, it'll help. Besides, you always say he's fun company. She hesitated, her eyes scanning my face as if trying to read between the lines. Then, after a brief pause, she gave a small nod. Sure, why not? Let's invite him over. The following night, Leano arrived, a bottle of whiskey in hand and that ever-present charming grin on his face. Sarah greeted him warmly, maybe too warmly, and I caught the way her eyes lingered just a little too long. We settled into the living room, the bottle quickly finding its place on the coffee table. The conversation started off easy, light jokes, work stories, harmless banter. But as the whiskey flowed, the mood loosened. And I knew the moment was coming. The moment where I'd find out if my suspicions were just in my head, or if I was about to learn a truth I couldn't take back. Lionel hesitated, his smirk faltering just enough for me to notice. He glanced at Sarah, so quickly that if I hadn't been watching for it, I might have missed it. Sarah shifted in her seat, swirling her drink, pretending to be amused. But I could see the tension in her fingers, the way they gripped the glass just a little too tightly. Lionel cleared his throat. Well? I mean, hasn't everyone at some point? He chuckled, trying to play it off. You know, like a friend's girlfriend or something? Harmless stuff. I didn't blink. Harmless, huh? He nodded, lifting his glass. Yeah. Just one of those things you never act on. Sarah exhaled, laughing a little too quickly. See? Nothing scandalous. She nudged him with her elbow, trying to shift the energy back to playful. But I wasn't done. I leaned back, forcing a casual smirk. All right, Sarah. Your turn. Truth or dare? She hesitated, just for a second, before forcing a grin. Truth. I let the silence stretch just enough to make her squirm. Then I asked, have you ever had feelings for someone you shouldn't have? She froze. It was subtle, the way her lips parted slightly, the way her eyes flicked to Lionel and back to me in the span of a heartbeat. But I caught it. Then, just as quickly, she laughed, shaking her head. Oh, come on. That's the same question. I shrugged. It's a good one. Lionel reached for the bottle. I think we need another round. Sarah sipped her drink, masking her discomfort with a smirk. Fine. I'll answer. She met my gaze steady but guarded. No. I haven't. Liar. Her voice was smooth, confident. But I knew her too well. I saw the truth in what she didn't say. And I knew, without a doubt, that something had already happened. Lionel lifted his glass in a toast. Well, that settles that. Sarah clinked her glass against his. Guess it does. I smiled, but inside my blood was boiling. This wasn't over. Not even close. Lionel hesitated for a second before shrugging it off like it was nothing. Haven't we all? It happens. But that doesn't mean you act on it, right? His response was smooth, almost too casual, but it didn't sit right with me. I wasn't convinced. Still, I knew I had to tread carefully. Sarah must have sensed where I was going with this because she quickly steered the conversation in a different direction. All right, my turn. Truth or dare, babe? Leaning back with a smirk, I played along. Truth. Her grin turned playful, her tone teasing. If you could change one thing about our relationship, what would it be? It was a clever move, redirecting the attention onto me. But I wasn't about to let her take control of the situation that easily. Honestly? I'd change how much we keep from each other. For the briefest moment, her smile faltered, but she recovered fast, letting out a light laugh. Well, that's deep. The game went on, but the tension didn't fade completely. I could feel it lurking beneath the surface. Lionel was definitely holding something back, and Sarah, she was playing her own game, I was sure of it. But the night wasn't over yet, and I just needed the right moment to pull at the loose threads. By then, the whiskey had done its job, and the game of truth or dare was in full swing. The atmosphere felt lighter now, the earlier tension seemingly melting away. Sarah's laughter filled the room, her cheeks flushed from the alcohol, while Lionel leaned back with that easygoing grin of his. Somewhere between the dares and confessions, I almost convinced myself that I had been overthinking everything. Maybe this really was just harmless fun, and my jealousy had blown things way out of proportion. After completing a dare where she dramatically reenacted a scene from some cheesy romance movie, Sarah turned to Lionel. "Your turn, Lionel." "Truth or dare?" He smirked. "Dare." She tapped her chin, pretending to think. "Okay, I dare you to confess your biggest teenage crush." Lionel let out a chuckle. "Oh, that's an easy one. The lifeguard at our local pool. She had this red one-piece swimsuit that, man, I could have written poetry about it." Sarah giggled, leaning back. "Oh my God, that's so cliché. A lifeguard?" "Hey, don't underestimate lifeguards," Lionel said, lifting his hands in mock surrender. "They go deeper than most people." Sarah burst into laughter at the unintentional double meaning, and Lionel followed, their shared amusement filling the room. Even I found myself chuckling, but somewhere in the back of my mind, a nagging voice whispered that they seemed a little too comfortable with each other. All right, I said, raising my glass. "Let's quit roasting each other, and have another drink. I'll grab a bottle from the wine room." Sarah waved me off with a playful smirk. "Hurry back! We're just getting to the good stuff." As I made my way to the wine room, I stumbled slightly. The alcohol was starting to hit. My thoughts felt a little hazy, but for the first time in days, I wasn't angry. The game had done what it was supposed to do. It proved that nothing was going on. They had laughed, teased me, and answered every question without hesitation. Or at least, that's what I kept telling myself. By the time I grabbed a bottle and turned back toward the living room, a strange sense of relief washed over me, maybe even a hint of happiness. Maybe I'd been overthinking things. Maybe they really were just friends, and my paranoia had been for nothing. But that fragile sense of peace shattered the instant I stepped back into the room. The bottle slipped from my grasp, landing on the floor with a dull thud. The sound barely registered. Because there, right in front of me, was Lionel, and Sarah. Sarah was straddling him, her short dress pushed up around her hips, while Lionel's hands gripped her thighs as he moved against her. Their bodies moved together in a rhythm that made it painfully clear this wasn't the first time. She tilted her head back, moaning softly, completely oblivious to my presence. Lionel's grip tightened on her waist, and a slow grin spread across his face. "I told you," he murmured with a low chuckle. "I go deeper." Sarah let out a breathless laugh, her fingers tangled in his hair as she rocked against him. My vision blurred. My chest tightened. A wave of rage and disbelief crashed over me so hard I couldn't move. I stood there, frozen, unable to process the sheer audacity of what I was witnessing. The air in the room shifted, the carefree atmosphere gone in an instant. Sarah slid off Lionel with a slow, almost deliberate ease, smoothing down her dress like she just stood up from tying her shoe. Lionel leaned back against the couch, adjusting his clothes with a smirk, both of them exuding the lazy confidence of people too drunk to care. I remained rooted in place, the wine bottle still at my feet. My hands trembled, my heart pounding in my ears. "Sarah," I said through clenched teeth, my voice unsteady as I fought to keep my fury in check. "What the hell was that?" She let out a slow yawn, stretching her arms like I'd just woken her from a nap. Then, reaching for a t-shirt draped over the armrest, she pulled it on and met my glare with maddening indifference. "What's with the tone?" she slurred, her half-lidded eyes locking onto mine. "It was his wish. Lame dare, by the way." I blinked, my fists clenching at my sides. "His wish?" I repeated, my voice rising. "What the hell are you talking about?" Sarah sighed, long and exaggerated, before lazily gesturing toward Lionel. "Lionel dared me," she said, her words dripping with mockery. "You know, truth or dare? It's a game, remember? You're the one who suggested it." Her drunken confidence only poured gasoline on the fire already burning inside me. "You're seriously just gonna stand there and blame me for this?" I snapped, my voice shaking. "For sleeping with him? Blame?" Sarah repeated with a tipsy giggle, wobbling slightly as she made her way to the bar. She casually poured herself another drink, as if this was just any other night. Oh, relax. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying, you wanted us to loosen up and well. She lifted her glass toward Lionel with a sly grin. Mission accomplished? Lionel let out a chuckle, rubbing his jaw, just as drunk as she was. Come on, man, he slurred, his tone cocky. We were just having a little fun. No need to be so uptight. Fun? The word burned as it left my mouth. You call this fun? Sarah rolled her eyes before taking a slow sip of wine. Oh, don't be so dramatic, she said, waving a dismissive hand. It didn't mean anything. It's just a stupid game. You're the one who brought out the drinks, remember? You're the one who said, let's make this night unforgettable. Well, here we are. I stared at her, my chest tightening with anger and disbelief. You're unbelievable. I spat. Am I? She shot back, her smirk widening as she swayed slightly. Or are you just pissed because you can't handle the game you started? Next time, maybe think twice before inviting someone like Lionel to play. That was it. The last straw. Before I could stop myself, my fist was already flying, connecting with Lionel's jaw. The impact sent him stumbling backward, crashing into the coffee table. Whoa, chill out, he slurred, throwing up his hands in mock surrender. Jesus! Sarah shrieked, nearly spilling her drink as she staggered toward me. What the hell is your problem? I turned to her, my hands still trembling. My problem? I shot back, my voice raw with fury. You're standing there acting like this is some kind of joke, after what you just did. Sarah shrugged, completely unfazed, then tipped back her glass and drained the last drop. You're overreacting, she said flatly. It's not my fault you can't handle a little fun. Maybe instead of blaming me, you should take a hard look at your own insecurities. Her words cut deep, her drunken smirk twisting into something colder, something cruel. I exhaled sharply, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. Fine, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, shaking with rage. You want to pretend this doesn't matter? Then neither do I. Without another word, I turned on my heel and stormed toward the door. Behind me, Sarah's voice rang out, laced with mocking laughter. Don't forget your wine, she called, her tone dripping with sarcasm. The door slammed behind me, rattling the walls. Since that night, everything has felt like a blur, like watching my own life unravel in slow motion. The days dragged on, pulling me further from the person I thought I was. Or maybe just the person I had convinced myself to be. Lionel wasted no time filing an assault complaint the next morning. I'd love to say I was shocked, but honestly, I wasn't. He always seemed like the type to stir the pot, and then play the victim when things blew up in his face. His hospital bills weren't anything serious, just a busted lip and a bruised ego, but they were enough to take a hit on my already shaky finances. The settlement was a slap in the face. Handing over a check to that smug bastard felt like rubbing salt into an already raw wound. But what choice did I have? My lawyer assured me it was the fastest way to put this mess behind me, and at that point, all I wanted was for it to be over. As for Sarah, we left the apartment the same way we had been living in it lately, technically together, but in reality, miles apart. I could barely stand to look at her, and I'm pretty sure she felt the same. She never bothered to explain herself, and I never asked. What would have been the point? It's funny, the little things you start to notice when everything falls apart. The empty wine bottles piling up by the sink. That dusty corner she never cared enough to sweep. The stupid honeymoon photos still hanging crooked on the wall. I used to see those as quirks, just part of what made us. Us. Now they feel like evidence, proof of something broken that I had been too blind to see. The divorce is in motion. She hasn't fought me on anything, not even when I said I wanted all the furniture. Take it, she said with a shrug, like none of it meant a damn thing. And maybe it didn't, not to her. For now, I'm crashing at a friend's place while I figure out my next steps. It's not ideal, but it's better than staying in that apartment, surrounded by the ghosts of a marriage that had already died long before that night. Some nights, I lie awake replaying everything, trying to pinpoint where it all went wrong. Was it the game? The alcohol? Or had this just been who she was all along, and I was too blind to see it? I don't know. Maybe I never will. What I do know is that I'm done. Done trying to understand her. Done blaming myself. Done pretending there was anything left to fight for. Maybe one day, I'll look back and feel something other than anger or regret. Maybe I'll even laugh at how I let myself get tangled up with someone like Sarah, how I let a guy like Liano get under my skin. But for now, all I can do is move forward. One day at a time. And hey, thanks for letting me get this off my chest. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think I was wrong? Should I have fought harder for my marriage? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. Either way, I appreciate you listening.